The Moose, there it is.
All right, just need to get him on audio. We're 90% there.
Oh, great. This is great. Thank you.
This is wonderful.
Okay, one of my favorite guys in the team was Big Moose. Jesus God.
Oh, he's so close. All right, connecting to audio. And we're all here early.
Yeah.
So how's your Christmas season gone so far, Joe?
Well, you know what? It's fine. You know what I elected to do this year, Zach, instead of getting gifts for my kids. I went to our church. I belong to the Catholic Church in Nativity and Media here, and I went there and went to the Christmas tree, and I grabbed a bunch of gifts. People
can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you, Moose.
Okay, good, because I didn't have any sound.
And so I went and grabbed a bunch of certificates and bought them and took them to the church and gave them to them. And people are really in need. My kids don't need anything. I don't need anything. Yeah. So that's what we did.
That's good for you.
Okay, now this meeting is being recorded. Now, how do I get? There's a little thing in the middle of it here. How do I get rid of that?
It's saying that right now.
It's this meeting is being recorded. The account owner and host can watch Zoom. Recorded. Any participation and permission can be recorded in this local device. These individuals can share these recordings with apps and others. By staying in the meeting, you consent to be recorded. And it says leaving meeting, got it. Do I put touch got it?
Got it. Yeah, touch got it.
Ah, there we are.
Beautiful. All right. All right. Can everybody see each other?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. The Moose.
How are you, Joe?
Hi, good to see you, Moose. You look good, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been so long, Joe. It's crazy.
Oh, I know, Moose. You look good, Moose. You look good, buddy. How's Jeanette? Jeanette and the kids doing?
They're really good. Everybody is doing well.
Yeah.
Except it's
Big
really cold
Dan,
here
Dollar
today.
Dan what's Dollar Dan still scouting?
Dan, yeah, is the assistant GM for Rimouski in junior hockey.
Oh, beautiful.
And, he's working with a private school here too, and he's quite busy actually.
Oh, good, Moose.
Nice.
Good. Well, Zach, your meeting, buddy.
All right. Yeah. If you guys want to get going, let's get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to My Dad Used to Play Hockey. I'm your host, Zak Kindrachuk. And today I have a very special co-host. I'd like to welcome, you know him from Instagram and Twitter, and of course, two-time Stanley Cup winner, Joe Watson. Welcome and Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, Zach, it's wonderful to be here this evening and today, and especially my good friend Moose. Oh my God, Moose and I had a lot of laughs together, and I want to tell you something. Moose scored one of the biggest goals ever in Flyers history. If he doesn't tie it up in Boston 2-2, they're going in the second game in Boston with 52 seconds to go. We might not win the Stanley Cup that year because we go down 2-0 against Boston. That's really hard to come back because they were a very good team. But Moose scored the tying goal, and then Clarkie scored the winning goal, and that propelled us into being Stanley Cup champion. But Moose scored one of the biggest goals ever in Flyers history.
Well, what a great introduction for our guest today.
Yeah.
Welcome. Well, one of the most stable, best defensemen in Flyers history, and another two-time Stanley Cup champion, Andre Moose Dupont. I'm thrilled that you're able to join me today.
Same here, Zach. It's fun. I think it will be fun because Joe's got all kind of memories, and that will be fun for me to hear them. And thank you for the introduction, Joe. I owe you one.
Darn right, Moose. Yeah.
Oh, let's start there then. The Boston series, the series that really put the team on the map. I mean, the city was behind you at that point, but I think the country really got behind you in a lot of ways, either behind you because they were fans of yours, behind you because they wanted to push you off a cliff because they hated you so much.
Yeah. But the problem, the thing with the Boston series is we had two teams that were quite similar. They were both tough teams, But what happened is I remember Schultz kind of going around and putting the Flyers, in front of the Boston Bruins and say, "Here, we're here." And he had a fight with Cashman, if I recall, and that changed the series around too. I mean, the Boston Bruins after that played our game, and that's where we end up. And what Joe was saying were the big goals, but I think the main guy on our team then was Bernie Parent. He was making save like crazy.
So who did a better job between the two of you of making sure that Bernie Perrant didn't have to make those crazy saves?
Well, Moose,
I mean,
Moose cleared the net. Anything happening in front of the net, Moose would clear over. Him and Eddie Van Imp would clear
Yeah.
everything out of there. So Bernie get a look at the shots. And Bernie was a real excellent angle goaltender, and he learned that from Jacques Plante. I can remember in the early days when Jacques could be out there on the ice with these ropes on the ice, and Bernie wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed to go outside those ropes because there was only angles, and Bernie was best at angles, angle shots, and Bernie could control the puck and probably push the puck wherever he wanted to by making the save. And I'll never forget the biggest save I think he ever made in his life was about 3 minutes to go in the game in Philadelphia. And Ken Hodge come down. Now, Ken Hodge is about 230 pounds. He got a pass from Esposito, and he got on the top of the circle, and the right-hand shot, he let it go, and Bernie got his toe out. I says, holy shoot. Because it looked like it was going in the net. He got his toe just as big as it was going in. And then I think we knew with 3 minutes to go, we were going to win the damn thing after making a save like that.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Were you guys nervous going into that series? Because you're playing Titans, both metaphorically and literally. Like this, the Bruins were a bunch of really big guys and then already established superstars. I mean, there's certainly a case to be made that Bobby Orr's the greatest of all time. Were there nerves, or did you feel like, all right, we've coalesced so well as a team that this is our time? And Moose, I'll let you answer first.
I honestly believe that our team was ready to beat the Boston Bruins. I mean, we had good hockey players too. Everybody talks about the Broad Street Bullies, but we had great players up front. I mean, we had a line of Bobby Clark, Billy Barber, and Cowboy Flat at the time, and we had Rick McLeish, we had Gary Donoffer, Lonsbury. Those guys were great hockey players. And our third line with your father playing at center with Schultz and Selesky brought so much to that team too. And we had the fourth line there with Bob Kelly and Billy Clement and Crispy and Simone Allais, those guys. I mean, we had a good hockey team, and we had the best goaltender in hockey. I mean, when we went to Boston, I honestly believe we had our chance, especially after the first game where they beat us on a bad play. I mean, Joe was talking about Ken Hodge. He kind of gave me a cross block in the corner. He was holding me down by the time they scored that goal, and we got beat in the first game. And I honestly believe after that, we had a chance. And in the second game, like Joe said, we had a chance to score and tie the game late in the game. And Clarkey scored that big goal to put us, a 1-1 series. And I knew when we were going to go back to Philly, there's no way the Boston Bruins was going to beat us at home. And that's what happened.
Yeah. You know what? Before that series started, we played the Rangers, and it was a 7-game series, and we won Sunday afternoon. We won 4-3, and Boston had played Chicago. They beat Chicago, I think, four or five games. They had 7 days off, and they were preparing for the Rangers. I talked to Orr after the series over, and he says, we were preparing for the Rangers, not the Flyers. We thought the Rangers were the best team in the league that year, and Boston said the same thing. They were loaded with talent, but in a way we win. So in a way we have 1 day off. Monday afternoon, we fly to Boston. And when we get to Boston, I picked up a Boston Globe, and I see a headline. This is anticlimactic. These words were, we just beat a better team to get the finals, and we're going to play for the finals of Stanley Cup. And I says, who the hell made that statement? Now look, it was Freddie Shero.
Yeah.
I said, Freddie, how the hell can you make a statement like that? We haven't beat them in 7 years of their building. He said, Joe, we're not going to show them any respect. We're not showing them any. We're going to go after them every chance we get. And what we're going to do, the buildings are warm, and we're going to shoot the puck in Orr's corner all the time and make him go back and get it. Every time he gets the puck, get in his way and try to wear him down, because Orr's playing 35, 40 minutes a game. And so in a way, the first 3 games, Orr was dominating. And after that, he was worn out. And Freddie was absolutely right in the statement he made. We're not going to show any respect to them, and we're going to wear them out. And that's what we did. And if you look at the series, Orr dominated the first 3 or 4 games, but after that, he was tired. And I remember the 6th game when he had the puck with about 10 seconds to go. He shot it down towards our net, and it went behind the net. and I was the first guy too, but I didn't want to touch the puck because there would have been a face-off back in their zone. It would have been 8 seconds, so I would let it run down to 4 seconds. And then Wayne Cash was the first guy near me. I touched the puck, and then of course there's so much noise and pandemonium in the building that the timekeeper didn't hear the clock or the whistle. So I let the clock run down to 1 second, and of course by that time there was people all over Hell's Half Acre on the ice, and that was it. But Freddie, I'll tell you, Freddie was way ahead of his time. He understood the game, and he knew what it took to win, and that's why we won. We won because of our coach, and our coach was a leader. He was a leader. You wouldn't know it, but he was a leader, a real good leader for us. And great guy for us too. Whenever we had problems with management, Freddie always side in with us opposed to the management. And that's not the way it is in sports. It's supposed to be coach and the management, but he was always on the player side.
Every player that I've talked to that was under the tutelage of Fred Shero brings up Fred Shero and the name in the first 3 minutes. And Moose, give me your experience. I'm interviewing Dave Schultz, and he Fred used to write these kind of quizzical things on the board, these like philosophical statements, and Schultz has a notebook where he wrote every single one of them down. Yeah,
that's not nice.
Yes.
Oh boy, that is great.
Should have done that too, because I played for him in a minor hockey too. I played for Fred Shero in Omaha, Nebraska, and we won everything there too. And you're right when you say Freddie was 20 years ahead of everybody else in coaching system and explaining the game and being behind his players all the time. I mean, I love the man. I mean, he became a second father for me, Joe, because he's the one probably brought me to the Flyers, and I will never thank him enough for that, At first, I wasn't exactly the right thing, because when I got traded right before the game there, I remember that incident. I was in the November or early December, Joe, if I recall.
Yep.
And I got traded for Brent Hughes that the boys in the room loved because he was a nice guy. Apparently, I never got a chance to meet him. And Pierre Plant and somebody else, I don't know, another kid there. And I ended up going from one room to the other. I remember walking to the Blues room. The guy said, "Your equipment is not here anymore. It's in the other rooms." What do you mean? I didn't even know I was traded.
It was a Thursday night when you were traded.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Even the wife didn't know I was traded. I didn't have the time to talk to her. The only thing, she was listening to the game on the radio, and she said that, "I don't know what happened with him, but he's giving the puck to Clark all the time." I said, "Jesus, we're having a bad game."
So wait, tell me more about that moment. You arrived for the game thinking you're going to play for one team and end up playing for another.
Yeah, I drove in the cab ride with Gary Hunger, and I was walking to go to the dressing room with them, and the trainer stopped me at the door. I said, "No, you seen your equipment in the other room." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, you got traded to the Flyers." Then I met Pierre Plant that was going from the Flyers dressing room to my room, to the St. Louis room. Pierre said, "Good luck, Pierre, bonne chance," in French, and I said, we couldn't believe it, either one of us. And it just happened. It started. I remember the room was kind of cold when I walked in. They lost a good friend, and they didn't like me because I played for the Blues. The Blues and the Flyers at the time were not exactly friendly team there. And I kind of look around. I said, "What the hell am I doing here?" Then I saw Freddie coming in the room, and I said, "That's not so bad. I know them anyway." And we went from there, and Simone Allais came and talked to me, and guys like Joe and Eddie and Barry Ashby came around, and they kind of welcomed me in the room, But the other guys were kind of looking at me. It was funny. But after a few weeks, and everything kind of fell into place, and I guess I got to know the players, and I realized that we had a good hockey team. I said, "Jess, we got something here," and especially with Bernie. And Bernie was a good goaltender because he had to make the first save. He never had any rebound to cope with. Because Eddie was there, Joe, myself, Barry, and there was no loose puck in front of the net. And Bernie knew it, and he played really well. And I told him, I said, "You were a good goaltender because you had great defensemen in front of you." And he's always, Well, we had a great bunch of guys. I ended up having a lot of good friends on that team, Not only players, we were more than friends. I mean, we're a big family, and we became brothers, you know. And every one of the kids that came through the Flyers for me was part of my family, you know. And it's touching.
Yeah.
And
Not that way anymore, Moose.
Excuse me.
It's not that way anymore here in
Oh, I
Philadelphia.
know, I know.
It's changed drastically. It's too sad.
It's probably what's
Sad.
missing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fred Shero
Yeah.
was the dad, you know, the default father figure, seemingly.
I mean, Freddie had his own way. I mean, he was so different than the other coaches that I played with. I remember one time I had a kind of a slump, you know, kind of, and Freddie came to me, said, Andre, he said, would you rather have a plane tickets or a bus ticket? And then I stopped and listened to him. Said, yeah, you mean the American Hockey League or stay here? I said, I'll take the plane ticket. It was nice and clear. And he got me going pretty well with that too. Nice words got called.
I want to get back to the brotherhood aspect, but I'm very curious, being that you had Freddie as a coach in minors. Was he the same when you went from being coached by him, you know, in the minors, and then later on in the pros, where you're immediately like, oh, that's the Fred Shero I know, or had he evolved as a coach?
He was exactly the same man, to be honest. I mean, he brought to the Flyers what he wanted. He knew the type of players he wanted. And everybody was telling him, oh, you got a tough team. He said, that's why I'm coaching him that way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I know. I said, why shouldn't I be using the force that we have? And he planned this team accordingly to what he had, you know. And the man was a genius. I mean, he went to New York after he left the Flyers, and New York didn't have the same team as we did. But he brought the team and a new system there, and those buggers, they made it to the finals. I remember we got beat by them.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddie was a big part of that reason. I mean, he knew every one of the players on their team, but he made a big difference. I mean, he brought something that everybody believed in it. And the system we practice, I remember every day for 20 minutes, every practice, we did the same rules, the same thing. We did everything. It had to be the same way we came out of the zone, the same system we practiced that became an habit, you know. And that's what spread Shero. And everybody knew what to do. When you had the puck, you knew where to look. Everything was done properly. You open all the doors and you just have to use it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And then did he also help cultivate, you know, you mentioned how close you guys got, not just as friends, but as family. Was that due to him, or was that kind of just, you know, by happenstance, this remarkable group of players also, you know, personality wise clicked so very, very well?
He was part of that because, I mean, it was a big reason for that, like Joe was saying before, but we had such great, I mean, friendship in the room. I mean, you're talking about like older guys like Joe at the time, and Barry and Eddie. Those guys really helped me become a better player, because I was running around like crazy when I got the Flyers. I mean, that was still the style I had at the time. And I remember Barry and Joe and those guys said, slow down, Mose. They see you coming all the time. They know you're going to try to run them, you know, and they kind of helped me in my game. And those guys made that everybody got together. We had a great leader and Bobby Clark, you know. I mean, he worked so hard and everybody had to work hard, you know, and everybody brought something special to that team. That's why we became champion. Everybody. I mean, Schulze was a big part of that success too, as well as Don Selesky or your dad, or the McLeish line was unbelievable. I mean, we had a guy that scored 50 goals and 50 assists to play the second line, you know, in their team. I mean, that's how much we had talent in that team, you know, and that's why I believe we became champion.
And I'd love to hear from both of you just about the role the city played, because it was an all Canadian, I believe, and maybe Joe, it's you who pointed this out. It was the last all Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup. So
yeah, 1975.
75.
Yeah, 75. But I remember, let me go back to 67 when we came here. we had training camp up in Quebec City, and we were there 5 weeks, and then we came down to Philadelphia. And the mayor at the time was James Tate, and he wanted to have a parade down Broad Street to welcome the city. Well, we start marching down Broad Street in these vehicles. Quite, there's more people in the parade. They're watching the parade. I said, hell, we're not going to be here very long. So now we go down to the city chambers, and he wants to have a banquet for us. He doesn't even show up for the banquet. So we're in the city chambers. He doesn't even show up. And I felt bad for the poor lady that organized this thing. He doesn't show up. So I never forgot that. 7 years later, we win the Stanley Cup, and we go down to the city chambers, and Rizzo was a mayor at the time. And we were inebriated, and we were there, and I got up. I says, where the hell was, I said, in these words, I didn't say in these words, but close to these words, where the hell was the mayor 7 years ago when we came here and never showed up for our event? And Rizzo says, don't blame me. I wasn't the mayor. Don't blame me. But that was Frank Rizzo. Oh, boy. But you know what? We came along at the right time when the city needed something and hockey needed something, and we were exciting. Wherever we went, Zach, we sold buildings out. The league didn't like us. The league hated us, but wherever we went, we sold buildings out. And I remember going to LA and meeting a lot of these Hollywood stars. Like Lauren Green was one of my favorite guys growing up as a young boy, because he was the head of Bonanza, and I had a chance to meet him. He was a guy from Winnipeg. And
Wow.
I met a lot of these people that just loved to see the Flyers play because they knew they're going to get their money's worth at the game. And because by hook or by crook, we were going to either win the fights or win the bloody game. And normally we won the game. That was the best part about the whole thing. But we had so much fun. And then our second year, we were a very cocky group. We were cocky. And we just knew we were going to win again. And then the third year, we run out of gas. Montreal wore us down, and
we lost Bernie too.
Huh?
And we lost Bernie.
Yeah. And Bernie didn't play. I honestly think we would have won a third Stanley Cup if we had Bernie and McLeish. McLeish didn't play. He got hurt in February. He didn't play, and Bernie didn't play. We were playing our first game, and warm up. Bernie got hurt and never came back and played the whole playoff. So
and we had lost Barry
against Montreal. They were so close,
Yeah.
but we got beat by 1 goal every friggin' game. And it just killed us.
But you come back to the Flyers, I mean, the city of Philadelphia, Joe, I mean, they were all blue collars, like the one, I mean, we were that type of hockey team too.
Yep.
We had to work hard to get success, and
Yep.
we were like the city of Flyers. I mean, the city of Philadelphia. I mean, every time you walk down Philly, I mean, everybody knew who you were. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, like you said before, nobody knew about hockey. But by the time we won the first Stanley Cup, and the parade we had was crazy, Joe. Remember that?
Yep.
I mean, it was unbelievable, the people there for that. I don't know how many million of people were there, but that was different than your first parade.
That's true.
Yeah, is it really a parade if no one's watching?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be. That's what Joe was saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Joe, you know, I follow you on your social media accounts, and I think you just posted something about Rexy's. I love Rexy's memories. And Moose, were you a regular there as well?
I mean, we used to stop all the time after practice. Everybody used to go there for breakfast and a few beers and they go home. But Rexy's it became part of the Flyers in some ways, because everybody kind of knew the place. And at first, there was nobody going there beside the players. And suddenly, one guy find out where the Flyers were, and we couldn't even go there after the game anymore. I mean, we had to find another place to have a quiet place, you know, to have dinner after the game. I mean, they became crazy, but the bar became as famous as the Flyers were.
And what were when the fans started showing up? What was that like? You know, because it's so hard for me to imagine that now. You like the players are such multi-million-dollar investments, and unfortunately, this has created this kind of fracture in terms of relationship between players and fans. But I can't imagine, like, at the time, you're the most famous people in Philadelphia. You're living sky high, but everybody knows where they can go meet you if they want to.
Yeah, that was kind of hard, but I mean, that was nice at first, then became too much because we didn't have in the place in the bar anymore. Like we used to stop and have something to eat there. Then that was so packed, jam packed all the time that you couldn't walk in. I mean, the guy would have place reserved for us to go if you wanted to, but I mean, you couldn't walk around. I mean, it was so much different than when we started there, you know. And at the end, it was a little bit too much in some ways, you know.
Mhm. Joe, I saw you mention too that everything has to end. When did you, I'd love to hear from both of you. When did you start to feel like the Broad Street Bullies were becoming something different?
Well, I think it was a series against Montreal. We got beat. And if you look at the games, every game was so close. We were up 2 or 3-0 on Montreal in the first 12 minutes of the game in Montreal. I remember Scotty Bowman says, we're going to put a guy on Leach, Bob Gainey, and we're going to shut him down. Well, Leach scored a bunch of goals in that series, and he won the most valuable player, even though we didn't win the Stanley Cup. And then they started, they traded Eddie Van Imp from the team in February. And I think that really hurt our team because we weren't as tough without Eddie as we were with Eddie. And I just thought that, I think we realized it was coming to an end when we got beat by Montreal 4 straight. We run out of gas, and injuries were a big part of it, obviously, because of the style of hockey we played. And I just felt that it was unfortunate it was coming to an end. And we didn't win a game against Montreal. And I remember I told my first wife, I said, listen, before we started the series, we were gonna go to Aruba. And I told my wife to make arrangements. Well, she made arrangements, and then we lost. And I said, I canceled arrangements, and she was very, very, very upset about that. And I guess, I don't blame her, but I just knew it was coming to an end, and you could tell we were close, but like Moose mentioned, we used to go to Rexy's after the game. The rule of thumb was to go to Rexy's after the game, because 90% of our players lived in Jersey, and there's 4 or 5 of us lived in Pennsylvania. So we'd go there for an hour, and then we kind of go our separate ways. And I remember that year in '76, we weren't doing it as frequently as we used to when we were 74 and 5. And I just thought that things were starting to go the other way.
Change, yeah.
And you know what happens? What happens when you win? Everybody wants to be with you. You meet all these new friends who you didn't know, but all of a sudden you became friends with them, and it was kind of crazy. And I never understood it, but we had so many new people that showed up, and we didn't know who they were half the time, but they just wanted to be with us. And then towards the end, we didn't see as many people showing up for events that we had or things we went to. So I just knew it was coming to an end, which is unfortunate, but it was the best times of my life.
Yeah. But like you said before, Joe, I mean, even the league didn't like the way we played, and they were quite happy, apparently, that the Montreal Canadiens beat us, because they brought the more fancy game and the speed, and the game was completely different from Montreal and ours, But I think that's where it changed. Then the Flyers wanted to change. They brought different players in, and they changed. We ended up having a half decent team too, because before I got traded to Quebec Nordique, we made it to the finals with all the younger players that came in, and they were in the right direction with Pete Peters and the young guys we had there. And for some reason, then they trying to trade all the older players, and everybody left. I mean, Schultz, Bob Kelly, all the guys went in their own way, like you did, and Simone Allais, and we lost all the heart of our team, and that was hard even for me when I got traded back to Quebec. I mean, they were nice to me. They asked me that was Quebec or Hartford at the time, and I said I'd rather go to Quebec, and try something different with a new team. But I kind of left my heart in Philly.
Yeah,
and
it's hard, Joe. I agree with you.
Yeah, talking to Schultz, he brought up his least favorite hockey moment was the first time he came back to the Spectrum as a Los Angeles King. What was it like for you, Moose, the first time you came back wearing a different uniform as a Quebec Nordique?
Well, I mean, it was hard. I mean, I spent 8 years with the Flyers, and the biggest success I had in my career was there in Philadelphia. Then you come back and you look at the orange and black in front of you, and you say, "Geez, I think I'm playing for the wrong team here." When that's how you feel, and the guys were funny too because the young kids they played like a scrimmage game every time it came to my corner. Nobody wanted to hit, or it was funny. It was a funny feeling for the first game. Then finally we got over that and we started to play the regular game. But at first, it's always hard. I mean, for everybody to come back to the Flyers, especially when you spend so much time there. Joe probably lived the same thing and I did, and it's really strange. Let's put it this way, because we had so much fun and we had a great ride in Philadelphia. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. Joe, going back to kind of something you mentioned earlier, that team chemistry seems much more difficult to generate in today's game. Moose, I know this is kind of a little bit your wheelhouse, like developing young talent. What challenges do you see? Basically, the question is, could something like the Broad Street Bullies ever happen again?
I don't think so, no, because of the change. People moves around too much, like even good players, they don't stay at the same place for so long. It all depends on contracts and money and the value of the players. And the game changed so much, As soon as all the salaries came in, then everybody could, after a certain time, to be a free agent. And the guy said his team wasn't going anywhere, then he would end up going for the better team to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And I don't think you'll ever see teams like the Broad Street Bullies anymore. I mean, it's not as, I don't think the players are attached to their team as we were. And I don't think it will ever happen again because of that, because you got too many movement, the players don't stay in the same place as we did. Before, you had career of 10, 20, 15 years, depending on players, that stays with the same team. That was their team. They wanted to die with that team, It's like Joe said, when the end came and they told us, there's the door. I mean, it was hard to take.
Yeah. You know what, when I found out, at the end of the season, you always met with the general manager and the coach. This is 78, and they called me in and they said, "Joe, we want to start breaking some young defensemen in." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I understand that, and we want you to stay here and help us, breaking the young defensemen. We want you to maybe play 40, 45 games a year." And I said, "Oh, shoot," I said, "I'm still in good shape. I want to play. I want to play a whole year. I don't want to play 40, 45 games a year." And they said, "Well, if that's the case, we're going to have to trade you." I said, "Okay, fine." So I mentioned Colorado, and of course I go to Colorado and I'm there 16 games and I have my career-ending injury, but the thing is, a week before I played in the Spectrum against the Flyers. I remember we got beat 4-1 by the Flyers in the game, and that was my last game in the building. And then we went back to Colorado when we played the Flyers there on a Friday night, and we had to go to St. Louis Saturday morning to play St. Louis Saturday night, and that's when my career came to a screeching halt. I broke my right leg in 13 places and ended my bloody career. But I'm glad I had that chance to play against the Flyers, second to last game of the year, or my career. And it was very difficult because I had my brother and I had, Moose and Bernie, and we had so many guys that I was still close to, and it was very difficult to play against guys that you grew up with and you bonded well with, and then we were all brothers. Yeah. So it was very, very difficult, but I chose to go to another team, whereas I could have stayed with the Flyers but not played much. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to end my career that way.
And my dad was traded to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right.
This is still, I just think, one of the most amusing moments I've ever heard of a hockey career, but it'll probably make sense to both of you, is that he's very close. He and Schultz are very close and always were so, but ended up playing against each other. And not only did they do that, they actually fought each other twice.
oh my God, that had to be a mismatch. Jesus God. Instead of, if Schultz really got upset, poor Horace. Oh, Jesus.
How weird would that have been for you, Moose, to come back as a Nordique and maybe drop, or maybe you did and drop the gloves against a former teammate?
Yeah, he did against Schultz in Pittsburgh. Schultz was in Pittsburgh at one time, and then we had a little scrap there. But I mean, nothing really severe, but I mean, came off it close. I mean, but I had respect for him, and he had respect for me too, because we did the same job for so long and with the Flyers. But I mean, Schultz was the number one man. I mean, he did so well for us. I mean, he brought a new aspect of what the Flyers were. And like Joe would probably remember, the St. Louis Blues, every time we came to Philly when I was playing there, I mean, we used to push the Flyers around pretty well. And they had a big fight one time when I was there. I got there in 71, I believe. And they had a big thing that happened in the Spectrum. And we kind of ran the Flyers right out of that building. And that's where Mr. Snyder said it'll never happen to us again, you know. And just before I got there, they had a big incident with Noel Picard and a young players by LaForge. Joe would probably remember, because I wasn't with the Blues at the time.
Yeah.
And after that, they said, we're going to bring a change, you know, the Flyers. And that's what happened. And those guys came in, and like Shosi used to say, I used to be a goal scorer. He wasn't junior, because I played against him in junior. He was playing against Sorel. And Shosi never had a fight in junior. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, when the guy told me Dave Schultz, I said, nah, it's got to be somebody different, you know?
Right.
Because Schultz was a good hockey player. Young kid from the West that came to play in Sorel, and he was scoring goals for them. I mean, he played really well in that regard. And suddenly there was Schultz. So that's going to be somebody different. That's another guy, you know. But it did happen. I mean, it's those things happen during your career, you know. And I was a goal scorer too at one point. Then I kind of gave it up, changed my style too. But those things, I mean, we had so much fun, and I mean, it wasn't work. I mean, it was everybody was happy to go to the rink, you know, because we knew something was going to happen. Freddie would bring different practice, and we practiced with tennis ball, and another day he brought a soccer ball on the ice. And I mean, he always brought something different. I mean, that's why it was fun to play for him. I mean, and the team was there, and the capacity of us winning games, we started to really believe in ourselves. And after that, there was no stopping us. You know, we knew we could make it a long way, because everybody brought something special, like I said. And we learned so much from the older players when I got there, and all the younger players. And that's how we built that team. And that's why we had so much success, you know. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's what really happened.
It's funny there. Someone posted a picture of a hockey card, and it was all the penalty minutes leaders from 1974 to 75. And I think 5 out of the top 10 were all Philadelphia Flyers. And I know your name was on there, Moose.
Yeah. I thought it was for my goal scoring. But I remember one thing. Joe was saying I had a big goal. And I remember when we played the Russian team, Joe scored was probably the biggest goal of his career against them too. He hurt them so bad they left the ice. That was something for the game too, Joe. Remember that memory?
Yeah,
I mean,
Moose. Yeah.
And that's
actually,
actually,
you know what, Moose? I was in Russia with our alumni 4 years ago. We went over there, you know, and I was the only guy that played in the 76 game, and then over in Russia 4 years ago against these teams. And I got interviewed plenty because they want to talk about the Broad Street Bullies and the Soviet Red Army team, especially in Moscow. We played in Red Square, and all these people are interviewing about the games. And I said, well, you know, when I look at you, you're 30 years old. You weren't even alive. Oh, Mr. Watson, it's all ingrained in our history of sports, of what the Philadelphia Flyers did to our Soviet Red Army team. And we've never forgotten that. And it's still in the history of sports today in Russia. But they were so good to us in Russia. But I don't know if you remember, Moose, the day before we had a meeting, we had a banquet at the Spectrum, the old Blue Line Club there, and both teams in there, and they started introducing the Russians, and they got light applauses. Now they come to Flyers, and they started introducing the Flyers, and they come to number 8, Dave Schultz, and all of a sudden the Russians were looking around and find out where he is and everything else. Then we knew they were very apprehensive while playing this bloody game. They were. I think they were very worried. You could see that. And then Bernie said no commie's going to shoot at me, so they sent Bernie away to Jamaica for 4 goddamn days, and we had to play. I was so bloody mad about that. Jeez, I was mad.
Wait. What do you mean? What? Tell me this Bernie story. I'm not familiar with.
Well,
this one.
Bernie says no commie's going to shoot at me, so they let him go to Jamaica for 4 days, and we had Wayne Stevens as our goalie. I was, what the hell? I was so bummed, and I was very, very upset. And I went to management and told him this is bullshit. It is bad because damn it, we win as a team, we lose as a team. And here he said no commies, so they let him get away with it, and he went to Jamaica for 4 days. 4 days, for Christ's sake. And here we had to face some music and everything else. And I'll never forget, we win Sunday afternoon, and then we had to go to Kansas City. And we go to Kansas City on a Monday afternoon, and we fly there. We get to I remember Clark and I are walking around a department store in Kansas City, Kansas, of all places. And this person came up to us and said, we just watched you guys yesterday or 2 days ago, or whenever you beat the Russians. I says, what? He says, yeah, we watched that game, or I watched that game, and I recognize you guys from the TV. I said, really? He says, yeah, I'm a big hockey fan. This is in Kansas City, for Christ's sake. Imagine Matt recognizing us in Kansas City, Kansas. But I go to show you the impact the Broad Street Bullies made on the hockey community all over the world. I mean, there was a guy recently that came back from Czechoslovakia. A friend of mine was over there in business, and he gets in a cab, and the guy asks him where he's from, and he says, "Oh, I'm from Philadelphia." Oh, the Broad Street Bullies. Here, this is goddamn 40 years later. This guy in Czechoslovakia, all he wanted to do was talk about the Broad Street Bullies. And the guy really wasn't much of a hockey fan, but then he became one because, he says, quite the Flyers are big in Czechoslovakia even, and Australia. I was in a flight going from from Toronto to Vancouver, and I sat next to a guy, and he was from Brisbane, Australia, and he asked me where I was from and what I do, and I work for the Flyers. I'm selling advertising. He said, Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies? Says, yeah. He says, I used to play in the Bullies because he watched that HBO special that they put out about 8-10 years ago, and he never forgot. Here's a guy from Brisbane, Australia, never saw a hockey game in his life till he watched the Broad Street Bully twice. Show in New York, and he was all excited, and I was excited to talk to the guy too, a nice guy. But it goes to an iconic name, the Flyers and the Broad Street Bullies.
And you're right about the Russian, Joe. I was there in 1999 with the Legends hockey here from Canada.
Yeah,
we were there to play in a small tournament, and we really had a good hockey team, and we whipped their team there pretty bad. I mean, the old timers were really bad there too, Joe. I mean, they couldn't skate, they couldn't do anything. But every time they introduced me, because I was the Philadelphia Flyers, they used to whistle like crazy. It's like booing. For them is whistling. I mean, we went to 4 different towns, and especially in Moscow, like you were saying, Joe. I mean, it was crazy. Everybody remembered the Broad Street Bullies. And they even had a small article in the paper showing us with the big sticks, how bad we beat the Russian. And they brought it back in 1999. I mean, it was some time ago, like it was 25 years later. I mean, it was crazy. But you're right about that. I mean, the Flyers were known pretty well everywhere. I still have some kids writing to me to get autograph from Sweden. I got some Czechoslovakia and Slovakia too, and it's crazy, Joe. You get them from all over the world. I mean,
right.
For the Broad Street Bullies, I agree, Joe. I mean, we had an impact a lot bigger than I thought we did.
Yep.
I know you guys have won 2 cups, but I think that to me that's the defining Broad Street Bully game was when you literally beat the Russians up. Like they actually left you chase them off the ice before they came to an understanding that if they didn't go back on, they wouldn't get paid, as the story goes. That's what Mr. Snyder. But gearing up for that game, was that different? Did you understand that, like, the international impact and how important it was, not for the Flyers to beat another team, but for the NHL to beat the all hated Russians?
I mean, I was a big part of it, but I mean, we just played our game. I mean, everybody was saying that Flyers played a rough game against the Russian team. I mean, the games that we had against Boston was 10 times rougher than that. I mean, to us, it was just a simple game. I mean, everybody finished their check, and the Russian team didn't know it because the team they played before, they were all fancy hockey like they were, you know.
Mhm.
But when they came to play us, everybody finished their body check. We kind of ran over a few guys. We threw a couple solid check. I remember Eddie hit Karlamov by accident, as Eddie would say. But that kind of changed their style. I mean, they kind of looking around instead to see where's the puck. Nobody wanted the puck so bad in their team anymore.
Mhm.
They were happy just to skate around, make sure they didn't get hit, you know.
Mhm.
And but
Well-
that was fun for us, and we needed to show because Pretty said, I remember the saying there, let's win today and we will walk together forever. And that was part of what we did when we won the Stanley Cup. And that was, for him, it was quite important to beat the Flyers too. And everybody was ready for that game. Let's put it this way.
Mhm.
Well, you know what? Reflecting back on that game, we played in Toronto on a Thursday night. And we had Friday and Saturday to prepare for the game against the Russians. And I remember people in Canada finally cheering for us and saying, we have to uphold the prestige of hockey in North America.
Mhm.
We have to win. We had to win. We had all these people wishing us good luck at where we're getting on the bus in Toronto. That's the first time we got cheered in Toronto, for God's sake. And if you remember, Freddie says he devised a system how we're going to play the Russians. I want the defense to stand up at center ice. I want the forwards to fall in behind the defense and pick up any loose pucks that we might pick up. And we did that. And if you watch the game, we outshot them 49-13. And if Trechek hadn't played really well, we would have beat him 10-1. But Freddie had this system. He says, this is the way we're going to beat the Russians, not the way we're going to play them. This is the way we're going to beat them. And Freddie used to always maintain, this is the way we're going to beat Boston, not the way we're going to play them. And when he said that, that meant that he knew we could win the game. And if he had to say, this is the way we're going to play them, he didn't really come out and say we're going to win or we're not going to win, but he says, this is the way we're going to win. There's a big difference between playing and winning. And Freddie was so far ahead of himself, but he devised a system that worked well for the Bullies.
And they were quite confused in that game. You're right, Joe, because they didn't know what to do anymore. And I mean, they played that
face off.
Yeah.
They made about 13 passes. We stood there and watched and they were confused.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do.
Halfway through the first period, they start shooting the puck in our zone because they couldn't penetrate our line. And they realized they couldn't penetrate because the system Freddie had devised.
Mhm.
You're right. I mean, there was another great proof that Fred Shero was the best at the time, you know?
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of Freddie, I'm sorry, let me interject here. I went to visit him the day before he passed on, and he was 52 years old. I went over to Cooper Medical Center, and he was in the room there, and I was in there with him. His head was the proper side, but everything else had shrunk up. And he had a little piece of paper and a pencil. He's trying to diagram a play for me. And next morning he was gone. I never forgot that. He tried to diagram a little paper. He had a little pencil and a piece of paper, and he was trying to show me something on a piece of paper. And then next morning he was gone. I never forgot that. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Joe, always good to talk to you.
Likewise, my friend.
Moose, really great to talk to you. Thank you for joining me.
It was nice meeting you too, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack, I mean,
And
you kind of look like your dad too.
You know, we
Yeah,
didn't
he
have.
does. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
sure
he
does. I
does.
mean, it's crazy. But you seem
Zach, are you in Philly?
You
What's
seem
that?
to
Zach,
be
you in Philly or where are you at? Are you in Jersey or? Are you
I'm in Jersey.
Huh?
I'm in Jersey.
Oh, you are? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Folks are out in
Okay.
California.
Yeah.
Well, Merry Christmas to both of you.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
That's why I want to wish Merry Christmas to all the hockey fans in Philadelphia and a Happy New Year's, and stay healthy, my friends. Stay safe.
Well, I
I
can.
want to wish all the Flyer fans all over the world.
Yeah.
This show goes all over the world, Moose.
Does
And
Yeah.
52 countries. 52 countries.
Yeah. I want to wish
That's
all
good.
the Flyer fans all over the world happy holidays. I really do. Yeah.
And stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddies. All right. Well, this has been My Dad Used to Play Hockey. Joe Watson, we got to do this again.
Yeah.
And Moose, once again, really, really great to talk to you. I'll see you
Thank
both
you very
soon,
much for
hopefully.
having me.
Thank you, buddies.